Assalamu alaikum. I hope all of you would be doing well. Just to confirm from my side, am I audible properly? My screen is visible. Am I audible? My screen is visible. Can I have your feedback? Okay. Thank you, guys, for your feedback. So I welcome, on behalf of ACCA, I welcome you all on this ATX webinar for March 2022 session. I hope the exam preparation would be on good track. I'm expecting this thing from you guys, and the areas where I can contribute towards your success in this ATX. So we will be supporting to you throughout this session. So with the positive words, this is the ATX session, which will be starting from this today, 13th Feb, and would be ending on 16th Feb 2022. So a 4-day webinar, 3 hours each day, starting from 1800, 2000 PST to 2300 PST. Just before I invest further time in the introduction of that session, let me have first introduction about myself, then we'll start discussing about common pitfalls, some of the objectives, some of the other interesting areas as well. So this is about a brief introduction for myself. I am Syed Kambaraza. I'm working as a senior manager in risk at Standard Chartered Bank, which is gold approved ACCA employer. Plus, I've been working in the banking industry from the last, make it 9 years plus. Further, I've been associated with the teaching of ACCA for the last 14 years approximately, and in which currently I'm associated with Tabani's School of Accountancy, which is a platinum approved lending partner of ACCA and the only platinum partner in the south region of Pakistan. And Alhamdulillah, in the past, we have produced many of the good results in the TX and ATX with some nationwide position and some of the worldwide positions as well. Uh, Furthermore, I have been taught I can't even recall properly, but roughly speaking, more than 10,000 students, roughly speaking, of ATX plus approximately more than 25 to 30,000 students of the TX as well. So, and furthermore, I like to share one thing with you. This session would be shared by my co-tutor, Sir Zia Rana. He would be introducing himself in his session. But just to give you a brief idea about him, he is also ACCA. He's been overall tutoring experience of more than 8 years. Plus, he has a working experience of KPMG tax department as well. Currently, he is associated with different ALPs and teaching TX, ATX, and FR related papers. Just one thing before I proceed towards the next slide, I like to share with you. Myself and Sarzia, we have invested a lot of time to make this session, these 12 hours, these 4 days for you guys productive. So, like for these 3 hours, there are efforts of like make it uh, 4 to 5 hours each day. You can say that. Well, continue with the further next discussion. I hope majority of you guys would be uh, attempting this ATX paper for the first time, and probably some of you guys would be attempting this ATX paper for either second or more than the second time. So just to share the brief idea, like how the paper would look like. So in the examination, there are two sections. One is section A, which would be of 60 marks. Second one would be section B, which would be of 40 marks. Section A, there are two long form scenarios. So two long form scenarios means like there will be scenarios which would be like 2 to 3 pages kind of scenario, roughly speaking. Whereas in the section B, it is like a short form scenario. So short form scenario means 1 to 1.5 pages scenario, not more than that. In the section A, For sure, there will be 4 professional marks. Like in every ACCA examination, the ATX has professional marks in it. Plus, it has 5 marks on ethics as well. We will be covering some uh, tips around how to tackle out these 4 professional marks, 5 ethical marks. Sorry. Like in total, these 9 tax related marks, how we grasp them. So at times, students take these marks lightly, do not focus, do not emphasize on these, and ending up ending up with the bad stories which lands towards the near to borderline. So each and every mark is important in this professional, in this ACCA journey. So do not think like, oh, this is only for 4 marks or 5 marks. No, each and every single mark is important. Further moving ahead, the next question is of 2 compulsory questions, which would be 20 marks each. A short scenarios based questions would be observed over here. Okay, what questions are covered over here? What questions are covered in section B? We will be covering that thing approximately in our upcoming 4 days, like today and the upcoming 3 days as well. So we will be guiding how to attempt these questions. We will be guiding how to attempt these questions. I will be guiding how to attempt the professional marks and how to grasp the marks on ethics as well. Uh, there are some of the key advices for passing this ATX exam. First most common complaint of the examiner. The most common complaint of the examiner is students do not link the answer to case study. Students do not link the answer to the scenario. Like, for example, I'm just thinking loudly. For example, if there are conditions regarding a, a business property relief or business asset disposal relief, examiner at times comments like, I don't understand. Students are giving me, answering me, addressing this relief with respect to the given situation, or they are talking in general. So if you are talking in general, you will not be awarded a good marks. Whereas if you are referring if you are referring with respect to the scenario, you will end up scoring a good marks in it. So question, try to link the answer from the case study from the scenario. What the bare minimum you can do to achieve this point is, what the bare minimum you can do to achieve this point is, like at least in the answer, use the name of the character or which is like mentioned in the question. At bare minimum, do this thing, please. Second, effective time management. Effective time management is like, okay, keep one thing remember. Uh, Most common reason at times which a student believe for their failure is they do not able to complete the paper. They do not able to complete the exam. But honestly speaking, yes, that is one of the reason, but not the sole reason. But to avoid this comment, what I advise all of you guys is manage your time. Learn how to manage your time. Manage your time with respect to total marks per question. For example, if the question is of 20 marks, you have to invest 20 multiplied by 1.8, make it like 36 marks into that question. And if there are parts of the question, for example, and the part of the question is like 5 marks, so 5 multiplied by 1.8, like you have 9 minutes to attempt that part of the question. So allocate your marks with respect to total marks with respect to sub parts of the question as well. Please do not lose the time allocation. Please do not, because if you start losing your time allocation, it will impact towards end of your paper and you will be ending up by not attempting some of the marks. So the best thing is like follow your time allocation. Secondly, considering the marking scheme as well. Like try to join the marking scheme in your mind while reading the question. For example, if there is a requirement which says calculate this and advice on this thing, so you need to bifurcate in your mind how much marks will be allocated to, for example, calculation, how much marks would be allocated, for example, towards the explanation. It's your decision. It's you have to decide over this thing and answer your questions then accordingly. Answer your questions then accordingly. Okay. The next point is please do read the technical articles which are available on the ACCA website, plus the examiner reports as well. Plus the examiner reports as well. So do give a good focus on the examiner because via this thing, you will be learning the key or important area, uh, emerging themes which are in the examiner mind, and via this thing, which is like examiner reports, via examiner reports, you will learn from mistakes of others. Please try to learn from the mistake of others. That is one of the most common issue of this human human creature. Like we do not as such learn from the mistake of others. We try to experience the things at our own. Please do give a good time to the examiner reports, because examiner knows what are the emerging errors or mistakes of the student. So please give it a good look at least. The next point. This is the ATX exam. The ATX examiner expect you guys that you guys are done. You guys are done with the ATX, and obviously this is the case at least. And you guys are heading towards your ATX exam, and like you are appearing in the ATX exam. Examiner expect like you guys are fully hands-on, you have a very good grip on your TX knowledge. You have a very good knowledge on the TX knowledge. Okay. One of the best way for the ATX students is the use of ACCA Virtual Learning Center. And I have shared the link with you guys over here as well about this Virtual Learning Center. There you just need to register yourself and you can examine the TX related topics. You can self-assess your TX related topics, topic by topic. Like for example, you can self-test, for example, VAT, IHT, capital gains, corporation tax, inheritance tax. Each and every topic is available. Okay. Last but not the least, like I said few moments ago, try to grasp professional marks. They are very simple marks, but just require your bit attention to grasp them. Obviously, I will be guiding you guys how to grasp those professional marks. Okay. If anything you guys want to ask from the key advices, I'm happy to answer. In the interim, I'm looking towards your comments. Which one of the examiner report should we read? So the examiner reports like one is the standard examiner comments. You should be reading that thing as well. Plus, in the last 2-3 sessions, the examiner has started providing uh, the answers along with the quality discussion. Like they picked up 2-3 sample answers, and in the sample answers, they start discussing what is good, what is bad kind of stuff. So you can go through that part as well. that part is also good. So in fact, for me being a tutor, that gives me a very good insight towards how can I guide my students to further improve the exam performance. So I will guide you guys to read the same. Um, any further question, please? Okay. Um, I'm moving ahead. Over the next slide, there is a past trend of the uh, TX, ATX passing rates. So if I look into the ATX passing rates, at times the max ATX passing rate is like 44. If I look into this, the December, March 20 and March 21, by the way, that would be March 22. We can expect a good graph, the high passing percentage over here. But if you guys notice, for example, the lowest percentage is 35%, which is in the December 19. But that is just that trend. Like on average, it is, if I look into the average is like 40% roughly the passing ratio of the ATX. There is a day-wise planner, what we will be covering in today's session, in the upcoming day 2, day 3, day 4. Just to give you a reference, I would be conducting the day 1 and day 2 sessions, and Sarzia would be conducting the day 3 and day 4 sessions. Which exam questions will be covered, what area will be covered by us. So you guys can refer on this slide. That will give you a good idea. Uh, Moving forward, any questions from your side? Again, I'm happy to take before I move towards the formal question discussion. In fact, before the formal question discussion, some of the relevant areas pertaining to the question. So if there is any question, please do raise it. Uh, how to practice CB. So I will be guiding, in fact, not only myself and Sergio, we would be guiding how to practice the CB part. But just to give you a reference, there is ACCA learning platform available, CB practice platform available. So you guys can access over there. And you guys can practice on the directly ACCA CB practice platform, because I do not recommend you guys as such to practice on the normal spreadsheet or the Microsoft Excel, because the ACCA provided spreadsheet is bit different in functionality from the normal Microsoft Excel. So I suggest you guys to directly log in to your ACCA portal. From there, you can access that. Kamran, admin guy would be addressing to your query. Uh, 80% portion, then what will be the impact? To Ansar server, keep one thing remember, it is not always about the quantity of the marks which you attempt. Like quantity matters. I do not agree with this fact. Quantity matters, but it is not only the quantity, it is the quality aspect as well which matters. So just imagine, if if you are attempting 80% of the paper with accuracy ratio, with correction ratio of, let's suppose, 70% at least, or 65% at least, my dear friend, you are in margin of safety. But in case you are attempting 100% of the paper, but you are not yourself clear what you want to write in the paper, or the quality of the answer is very poor, then such 100 marks attempting is useless. So that is the point. How to attempt 35, 25 marks question, because they take too much time. Eteshan, we will be covering both type of questions in today's session and upcoming 3 days session. So we have picked up 35-mark question as well, 25-mark question as well, 20 marks question as well. So we will be covering all type of questions. Uh, Fine. Uh, okay. Let's start first of all with this ethics related session. Okay. No, so you guys cannot see the questions from other students. Me being the organizer, being the administrator, I can see the questions, but you guys can't see the questions. But once I am available to see towards the screen of the questions, I will be looking towards the questions. Okay. Now, let's start today with the ethics session. Again, keep in mind while reading this part of the notes, with this part of the handout, that this is the area which will be examined for like 5 marks. 5 marks, and that is like compulsory type element. Okay, fine. Just before I start properly the discussion of this professional code of ethics and the ethical related stuff, I like to share one thing with all of you guys. Ethics is same as the ones which we used to look across all ACCA exams, like the ethical behavior, the fundamental code of ethics. The code of ethics are remains the same, which is like professional competence, integrity, objectivity, professional competence, due care. Am I missing something? I'm missing something. I'm missing two things at least. One is professional competence and due care, professional behavior, kind of stuff, right? So this is one aspect. Second, uh, in the ethical universe, for example, in the ethics related universe, uh, there are some of the threats to independence. What are those threats to independence? What are the threats to independence? No one? Yes, one was the self-interest threat, self-review trust, self-interest, self-review, uh, advocacy, familiarity, intermediation. So all of the things remains the same. What differs is basically over here, the capacity to think would be changed. Like here, the capacity for example, in your earlier audit and assurance paper, you would have learned these things, but the application of these things was with respect to the auditor. Here, all of such things exist, but the capacity to think would be in the form of tax advisor, would be in the form of tax partner, would be in the capacity of tax consultant, rather than the auditor. So the capacity would change, the fundamental ethical principles, the the threats, uh, possible threats, that would remain the same. Okay, so keeping this discussion in mind, let's have a look, a small recap over the code of ethics. So the code of ethics for the tax advisor applies to 5 broad dimensions. First, If you are going to engage a new client, what will be the consequence? Second, if we face any kind of conflict of interest, what we have to do, what we are supposed to do. If myself, for example, a tax authority, if we observe any kind of HMRC error, if we observe any such type of HMRC related error, right? If we observe, if we notice, uh, then we can pick up like what will be our response to that error. Then if we found any kind of evasion or avoidance, then what will be the consequence? And being a tax advisor, if we if we suspect any client to be involved in money laundering, then how to proceed with that thing? Okay, so these are the five broad dimensions. Let's start looking into one by one about each of the dimension. For example, let's start first talk about the new clients, prospective clients. In this type, generally, we will be having a new client and the requirement will be that what factors we should consider before accepting this potential client. What factors should we consider? The factors which should be considered are as follows. For example, we must obtain evidence of client identity. So, for example, if it is a company, we need to have its certificate of incorporation, probably. And if it's an individual, for example, its identity card, etc. The primary business address and registered office for each of the client, proof of incorporation, details of directors and shareholders and the identities of those persons instructing the firm on behalf of the client. Okay. Further, we must have regard to the fundamental principles of professional ethics, like whether becoming tax advisor would create any threat to compliance with these principles, like is there any ethical principle with respect to integrity, with respect to professional competence. We are we are for example as such capable of doing that type of work which client is expecting. Do we have a human resource power? All such stuff. If such threats are identified, we should not accept the appointments unless the threats can be reduced to an acceptable level via the implementation of safeguards. Further ways, we should contact the client tax advisors in order to ensure that there has been no action by client which would prevent the acceptance of the appointment on ethical grounds. For example, there is no money laundering case ongoing on the client. I'm just thinking loudly. We must carry out a review in order to satisfy ourselves that client is not carrying out any activity which may be regarded as money laundering. Done. Second, conflict of interest. The conflict of interest, the most common type of conflict of interest is, for example, I'm working, I'm working uh, for a like I'm working as a tax advisor for the company. At the same time, director of company approached me to provide the tax advice. Now, would I be providing the tax advice to the company and director both at one point of time? Answer to this question is like there can be possible conflict of interest. Probably one tax advice which is in the best interest of the company, probably that would not be in the best interest of the director, or it can be vice versa as well. So it is not necessary. It is not necessary like one advice fit like creates a win-win situation. So probably most of the cases there would be a win-lose situation. Either the director would be in a winning position or a company would be in a winning position. But if you are giving advice to both at once, that would create a conflict of interest. Now, Conflict of interest can be occur in following situation. In which of the situations conflict of interest would occur? Where a member acts for a client and is then asked to act for another party in that transaction, acting for both parties in divorce, acting for employer and their employees, where the advisor may benefit from the transaction. It may be acceptable to act for both parties. So it is not allowed to act for both parties. It is allowed to act for both parties as long as the following safeguards are put in place. What safeguards we are talking about? First, the potential conflict should be pointed out to all of the relevant parties. First of all of the parties. Consent should be obtained to act from them, obviously, and this consent should be in writing. Third, the firm must have clear guidelines in relation to confidentiality. One way to reduce this confidentiality is the creation of Chinese walls. Like we can think about creating the Chinese walls. Lastly, we should consider the need to use separate teams for each client. The firm may consider acting for just one party or not acting for either party. Now, the last thing depends upon the firm's policy. Like if there are such type of conflicting situations, are we going to accept and will try our best to reduce these kind of things, or uh, we can create a policy for not in such situations to act for any one of the parties. So it depends upon the organization policy. Third, if we found any kind of HMRC errors or any kind of tax irregularity, for example, HMRC has mistakenly provided me a refund of some amount. For example, I have not paid tax on any amount which I have difference of opinion, for example. So if such cases arise, if a member becomes aware that client has committed a tax irregularity, they must discuss it with the client, ensure that proper disclosure is made. The common examples could be not declaring income that is taxable. So if I observe that there is some of the income owned by the client which the client is not willing to disclose, what I have to do? Second, claiming release to which they are not entitled. For example, they are falsifying the conditions for claiming the reliefs. Not notifying HMRC that they have made a mistake, giving rise to an underpayment of tax or increased repayment. Where a client has made an error, it will be necessary to decide whether it is a genuine error or deliberate or fraudulent, because all nature of errors would have different penalty implications. I hope you understand this thing, because if the error is a genuine error, there is no penalty. But if the error is careless error, 30%, deliberate with no concealment, 70%. If the error is deliberate and concealed as well, the penalty is the penalty is can you guys tell me what is the penalty in such situation? Correct. In such situation, the penalty is 100%. Uh, that 32.5% is basically the dividend tax percentage. That is not the error penalty percentage. Now, once an error has been discovered, the member should explain to the client the requirement to notify HMRC as soon as possible and the implications of their not doing so. If the client still refuses to make full disclosure, the member or the firm should cease to act for the client must then also write to HMRC informing that they have ceased to act for the client without disclosing the reason why, because you have a duty of confidentiality towards your client, must then consider their possession under the money laundering regulations. Mm, The next discussion. The next discussion is about uh, tax avoidance or tax evasion. The tax evasion is unlawful, whereas tax avoidance is the use of legitimate means to reduce the incidence of tax. A taxpayer who dishonestly withholds or falsifies information for tax evasion purpose may be subject to criminal proceedings or suffer civil penalties. Whereas for tax avoidance, the courts are wary of schemes or arrangements for the sole purpose, which is to avoid the tax. A general discussion about the money laundering. All businesses within regulated sectors must appoint a money laundering reporting officer within the firm. So that's a mandatory thing. And by the way, just to share with you, money laundering reporting officer is not a it is not a designation. It is, you can say, a job description which you can add, for example, to the duties of head of tax as well, which you can add to the duties of, for example, financial controller or CFO kind of persons as well. So that's up to you, up to the organization. Where a report is made, the client should not be informed, as this may amount to tipping off, which is an offense. So if you observe this thing that client is involved in money laundering, you are going to inform HMRC that we are not going to act for this client. Please do not disclose this thing to the client, because this phenomena is called as tipping off, which is a legally offense. The next small discussion is about uh, which is a thing which is abbreviated as GAR, or General Anti-Abusive Rules. General anti-abusive rules are basically uh, abusive tax arrangements. What is abusive tax arrangements? Abusive tax arrangements, or GAR, is basically a philosophy like you are going to create a series of transactions which apparently looks like legal, you are avoiding the tax, but since you have created so much series of transactions, like, which eliminates the true legal status of the transaction, and the sole purpose is to avoid that tax. Such kind of philosophy, such kind of things are not allowed by tax authorities. Okay. Dishonest conduct of tax agent. So, for example, if any of the tax agent is found behavingly which has a dishonest conduct, there is a civil penalty of up to 50,000. Where a penalty exceeds 5,000, may publish details of penalized tax agents, like to make them a blacklist. With agreement of the tax tribunal, HMRC can access the working papers of a dishonest agent with the agreement of tax tribunal. Agreement means it would be like it would have like the capacity of by orders of court of law, not your own discretion, right? Um, Anything further? So that is the basic, a very basic discussion from my end with regards to the ethics related stuff. Anything which you guys want to discuss with respect to this ethics related stuff? I'm happy to take that up. Now I'm looking towards your questions or comments. Uh, Ansar, to Ansar, since this webinar is worldwide, so we have to be like vigilant. There would be out of Pakistani students as well. Peer Hamza, that would be available in the notes which are shared in the day one or introductory session. So in the introductory session, you will get that. Mm, so ethics to Fatma Khan, the ethics is not normally examined as a separate question. It is like normally covered in section A, and within the section A, mostly, not always, mostly it is part of question one, which was 35 marks. So out of 35 marks, normally 5 marks belongs to the ethics. So that can be like part A or part B or part C or part D type of stuff for the question. Uh, I would say, Jangir, a fair suggestion, a fair ask, but the point is the notes are owned, controlled by the ACCA, so they can address this thing. I don't know whether this is like possible or not. I am not sure. What we can do is like we can share it on WhatsApp before the class, for example. We can do that. Okay, so I'm going to start a discussion, a brief topic specific, agenda specific discussion which relates to my question, my exam question mainly. Uh, to Muses, like that is available. These two PDF files, the one which I was using for the introductory purposes, and this one file which I'm using right now, I can see them available uh, in the material section of this uh, uh, go to webinar software. So you can download it from there. So if you get the notes, Changi, you will be like knowing that which topics we are going to cover. So that is again dependent upon the ACCA stuff, ACCA policy. I need to check for this first. Um, any further question? In case of no, I am going to start. Fine. Let's start from the topic specific, the agenda specific discussion, which will be belonging to my question. Okay. Uh, keep one thing in mind before I start the after ethics thing. We have we have like in total we have in total like 12 hours, and out of the 12 hours, I can say the 45 minutes are already passed. We are left over with like 11 hours and 15 minutes. We cannot cover the 100, even in the form of revision. We cannot cover the 100% syllabus of this ATX session. We will try our best to cover the maximum area with more emphasis, with more focus towards the practice stuff, like how to attempt the question, what to write in the, not how to write in the question, which comment should be first, which comment should be second. So we will be addressing in this way. To steward Honestly, this thing is not part of the plan, but if I notice, if myself and Sarzia we notice the more interest of you guys, then we can do that. Like doable thing. Okay, so let's start the discussion over the key areas, one of the key areas which belongs to the question which I'm going to cover. Capital gains group. Capital gains group, the definition of capital gains group is if direct shareholding is 75% above, and in case this condition is met, then indirect shareholding is 50% above. Then there will be a creation of capital gains group. Keep remember, for the capital gains group to establish, a capital gains group to establish, indirect shareholding 50% above is only applicable where direct shareholding is more than 75%. Like just imagine, this is the parent entity. Parent owns 70% of subsidiary, and subsidiary owns, for example, just giving you as a reference, 80% of sub-subsidiary. If I look into this direct shareholding, this is 70%. It does not, the S would not be part of the capital gains group. But if I look into sub-subsidiary, the shareholding in sub-subsidiary is, would sub-subsidiary be part of capital gains group? Yes or no? My dears, that is the thing which I want to highlight over here. Sub-subsidiary would not be part of capital gains group with P because, like I said few moments ago, indirect shareholding would only be relevant if direct shareholding is more than 75% above. Since in this example, in this particular example, since direct shareholding is less than 75, hence indirect shareholding, checking indirect shareholding is irrelevant. So all of the companies which are connected with S would no more be part of the capital gains group. Keep this thing in your mind. This is the most common error in the capital gains group. Okay. Um, UK companies, non-UK companies, both type of companies would be included in the definition. But the implications of capital gains group is for UK companies only. So one thing is like they are part of the definition, but they will not be able to get benefited from this arrangement of capital gains group. The benefit of capital gains group is only for the UK companies only. What are the implications of capital gains group? First implication of capital gains group is the transfer of asset or sale of asset between capital gains group companies is always at no gain, no loss, i.e., transfer of asset between capital gains group companies would be at indexed cost. Done. Point number two. Within the capital gains group, capital gains or capital losses can be transferred to capital gains group companies. Keep remember, capital gains or capital losses can be transferred to capital gains group companies. Listen to this thing carefully and keep this thing in your mind. In the group losses group, in the consortium philosophy, there was a concept of transfer of loss only. There was no concept of transfer of income. I repeat, there was only the concept of transfer of loss only. There was no concept of transfer of income. Like in the group losses group, we can transfer the loss, the surrendable company can transfer its loss to the claimant company. Surrendable company cannot take the income of claimant company, right? The loss has to be transferred. In the consortium, also the loss has to be transferred. But here in the capital gains group, we can transfer capital loss or we can transfer capital gains as well. Both of the things can be transferred. This is the very interesting and the only available feature over here. Can be transferred to capital gains group companies in any direction. What do you mean by the word in any direction? In any direction means if there is a loss to a subsidiary or if there is a gain to a subsidiary, this loss or gain can be transferred in upward direction. I'm just saying it for the sake of example. This can be transferred downward. This can be transferred verticals as well. Sorry, in the horizontals as well. So it can be upward, it can be downward, it can be horizontals as well. It can in any direction. Up to any amount. So up to any amount means it is not necessary to transfer all of the gain or all of the loss. So you can transfer the gain or loss of your discretion amount. Okay. Next. Sorry. Against the capital gains of the capital gains group companies. So where the loss transfer would be reflected, it would be reflected against capital gains. So it would not be adjusted against total income, it would be adjusted against capital gains. Like group losses, consortium relief, that is adjusted against total income of the claimant company. But capital gain or capital loss, that would not be adjusted against total income of the claimant or surrender, whatever you name it. Rather, it is to be adjusted against capital gains. Last, there is a concept of group rollover relief as well. So the rollover, I will be covering the rollover concept shortly, but there is a concept of group rollover as well. Few of the important points relating to the capital gains group. One company can be member of one capital gains group at one point of time. So one company cannot be member of more than one capital gains group. The above implications are for the time when company is part of the group. Okay. For capital gains group purposes, company will leave the group when control is transferred. Not at the time of arrangement of selling the company is established. By the way, the arrangement to sell the company is established. Company is no more part of group losses group or consortium, right? So there is a difference between capital gains group and the group losses group. Group losses group cease to exist. Group losses group cease to exist. One, for example, agreement to sell the company is signed. Group losses group cease to exist. Consortium cease to exist. But capital gains group, it remains there unless actual control is transferred. Second, discussion is around business asset disposal and business asset purchased and reinvested in purchase of business asset, the concept of rollover. When a business asset is disposed of and another business asset is acquired, then the rollover relief can be claimed, can be claimed. There could be two scenarios as follows. What could be possible two scenarios? Scenario A, the business asset is disposed of and reinvested the whole amount in acquiring another business asset, whole amount reinvested in acquiring another business asset. In such situation, rollover relief can be claimed in full. Second scenario, business asset disposed of and reinvested the partial amount in acquiring the other business asset. Not reinvested complete amount, reinvested the partial amount. In such situation, rollover relief can be claimed in partial. And how to calculate rollover relief in such situation? The uninvested amount is taxed immediately. The balance as rollover. What are the key most important conditions for the rollover relief? The key most important conditions for the rollover relief are: first, the asset which is purchased and sold should be business asset, i.e., should be used in business. Second, reinvestment should take place in qualifying reinvestment period. And what is the qualifying reinvestment period? The qualifying reinvestment period is from the disposal date, last 12 months, next 36 months, i.e., there is a total window of 48 months for reinvestment. So, two most important conditions. First, the asset purchased and sold should be business asset. Like business asset does not mean like it should be only in the ownership of business. Rather, that it means that it should be in use of the business as well. Second, reinvestment should take place in qualifying reinvestment period. What is the qualifying reinvestment period? The last 12 months or next 36 months from the disposal date of asset. The next discussion within the rollover relief universe is the crystallization of deferred gains. The crystallization of deferred gains means under rollover relief, some of the gains were deferred. They would become taxable at any point of time in future. When they will become taxable, that would be addressed by the concept of crystallization of deferred gains. When the deferred gains would be crystallized, when the purchased asset is disposed of, when the purchased asset is disposed of, and proceeds not reinvested. So if you dispose of the purchased asset and do not reinvest the proceeds, on on that point of time, on that point of time, your deferred gains under rollover relief would be crystallized, would become taxable. The next discussion is, for example, I have disposed of a business asset and reinvested my proceeds either in non-depreciating asset, or for example, I have reinvested my proceeds in depreciating asset. Then what will be the consequences of reinvesting in either depreciating asset or either reinvesting in non-depreciating asset? For example, if I dispose of the business asset and reinvested the proceeds in non-depreciating. By the way, before I start before I start the discussion of in depreciating asset or non-depreciating asset, I like to have some discussion over what is depreciating asset and what is non-depreciating asset. Depreciating asset is defined as any asset which has a useful life of less than 60 years. I repeat, depreciating asset is defined as any asset which has a useful life of less than 60 years. Such assets are called as depreciating asset. Accordingly, plant and machinery kind of stuff is always considered as depreciating asset. Okay. Now, if I dispose of the business asset and reinvest my proceeds in non-depreciating asset. Non-depreciating, like I reinvested my proceeds in land, building, warehouse, factory kind of stuff. Then in such situations, the relief which is available is called as rollover relief. But if I dispose of the business asset and reinvest my proceeds into depreciating asset, means I dispose of any of the asset and reinvest my proceeds in, for example, plant or machinery kind of stuff. In such situation, the name of the relief is called as holdover relief. Holdover relief, holdover relief principally, conceptually, mathematically, it is same as rollover relief. The only difference in the holdover relief is crystallization of deferred gain. Hold on, please. Um, is the audio now fine? Is the audio now fine? Okay, thank you. Let's continue. I believe you guys would have lost me from here, crystallization of deferred gain. So let's start the discussion from back to the crystallization of deferred gain. For example, I dispose of the business asset and reinvest my proceeds into depreciating asset. In such situation, the relief which is available is called as holdover relief. Holdover relief mathematically, conditions perspective, each and everything is same as rollover relief. Each and everything is same as rollover relief. There is only one difference, and the only difference element is in the holdover relief, you have reinvested in depreciating asset, and the differentiating point is the crystallization of deferred gain. The crystallization of deferred gain under the holdover relief, the deferred gain are simply freezes and they become taxable at the earliest of. Earliest of what? The disposal of the replacement asset and proceeds not reinvested. The date the replacement asset ceased to be used in business. 10 years after the acquisition of replacement asset. So it's like for holdover relief, the maximum deferral is for 10 years. I repeat, for holdover relief, the maximum deferral is for 10 years. Whereas for rollover relief purposes, there is no such restriction, there is no such condition kind of stuff. I'm taking a pause for a minute and now looking towards your questions. If there is any question relating to the concept of rollover relief, the capital gains group, I'm happy to take now. What if the asset is again sold and reinvested before 10 years? Will the holdover continue? The answer is yes, but uh, to Hamza, like normally what happens is your plant and machinery is tangible movable, life less than 50 years, life less than 50 years. So normally such assets, such things are exempt from capital gains normally. So, but if you keep reinvesting, yes, you can keep claiming the rollover thing. Could you please show us an example for each? Example for each, like for depreciating, non-depreciating, or partial or complete reinvestment. What to be exact you are asking? Which kind of asset sold qualify for rollover and which type of asset should be acquired? To Mohsin, the asset should be business asset. For example, the asset could be your factory, your warehouse, your admin building. It should be used in your business. So only ownership of in the business would not suffice. There should be business use as well. Um, what is meant by crystallization? To Clark, crystallization means uh, the reliefs which defers your taxes, like rollover. Keep remember, rollover do not save your tax, it defers your tax. Whatever taxes deferred, they would become taxable in future at any point of time. The time when it will become taxable in future is called as crystallization, like becoming taxable of deferred gains, like the gains which you have deferred, when they will become taxable. Crystallization of deferred gain. Um, to Stewart, probably you are referring with respect to the calculation of reliefs or type of assets. Just last thing. I'm not talking like relief is deferred. At the moment, my point is under rollover relief, your gains are deferred because you are like tax authorities. I'm not going to pay tax on the disposal of this asset. Rather, I will be paying tax on the disposal of second asset. Why you are not paying the tax on the disposal of this asset? Because I don't have the cash with me. I have reinvested the proceeds on the acquisition of another asset. Uh, to Kamran, last point probably. In the exams, it is not normally mentioned that rollover relief or holdover relief. Rather, there is a common word which is used is called as reinvestment in business asset relief. So if there is a word reinvestment in business asset relief, mm, so over your question calculation aspect thing, I can share some of the questions with you guys offline. Plus, that will be addressed in our upcoming exam question as well. So, if you want any further practice relating to this, I can share the further practice questions relating to this part as well. Okay. Fine. So, I'm moving ahead towards the next discussion. The next discussion The next discussion is about the transfer pricing legislation. The transfer pricing legislation, the transfer pricing legislation is applicable to the companies. It is applicable to the companies. And which companies it is applicable? It is applicable whenever there is a transaction within the connected companies. There is a transaction within connected companies under transfer pricing legislation. All of the undervalued transactions should be adjusted to make them at arm's length price. Keep in mind, arm's length price. What do you mean by the word arm's length price? Arm's length price means the fair value amount, you can say, or proper definition is it is the amount at which asset or liabilities could be exchanged. The transfer pricing legislation is applicable upon all head of income of a company. So it is not only limited to any particular head of income, it is applicable on all heads of income. Like it is applicable on trading, this legislation is not only limited to any particular head of income, it is applicable on all head of incomes. For example, trading, property, interest, capital gains, all head of incomes. How this legislation will be applied? The legislation will be applied as follows. If you are a large company, you are buying or selling from any company, transfer pricing legislation would be applicable. If you are SME company, small medium enterprise, you are buying or selling from connected company, which is either UK SME or such a country with which HMRC has a double taxation treaty, transfer pricing does not apply. But if you are buying, selling, if a connected company reside in a country with whom HMRC did not have a double tax treaty, so you can say, roughly speaking, transfer pricing legislation is not applicable in only one situation. And what is that only one situation where transfer pricing legislation is not applicable? You are yourself SME and you are transacting with a company which is located out of UK, and it that country has double tax treaty with the UK. A small discussion, like normally the transfer pricing is like max 3 to 4 marks, not more than that. Okay, so I'm heading towards the next discussion, which is about the overseas, since I am mainly addressing the overseas related stuff of the company. Overseas aspect. Now, first of all, and this overseas aspect belongs to the companies, not to the individuals. How to define a UK resident company? Like at the start of this, after ethics part, we had discussion like UK companies, non-UK companies. So what is a UK company? UK company is any company which is incorporated in UK. UK company is defined as any company which is incorporated in UK, or if it is not incorporated in UK, it is controlled from UK. If not incorporated, controlled from UK. Keep remember, control does not mean the majority shareholder. Here the word control means where AGMs, BOD meetings are conducted. That is the thing, that is the place from which the from which the company is controlled. Okay. If a company is UK resident company, then it has to pay UK corporation. Uh, if a company meets the definition of UK resident company, then the company has to pay UK corporation tax. Okay. Now, if I follow these principles, there is a possibility that any of the UK resident company would fall in the definition of UK corporation tax, and it could fall in the definition of any of the overseas country corporation tax. Like, for example, just to give you a reference, for example, there is a company which is incorporated in Pakistan. Let's say if the company is incorporated in Pakistan, by definition, incorporated in Pakistan, that would be Pakistani resident. But let's suppose the company is controlled from UK. So that company is in the definition of UK resident as well. So with such company, there could be a double taxation. Wherever there is a double taxation, two possibilities. Either the tax treaty exists or the tax treaty does not exist. What is tax treaty? Tax treaty is basically the tax agreement between both the countries, between the parent and the sub, like between both the countries, the UK and the other country. If there is a tax treaty, that would be mentioned in the question. If there is a tax treaty, that would be mentioned in the question. And if there is no tax treaty, then double tax relief is available automatically. Then double tax relief is available automatically. Double tax relief is basically lower of what? UK tax and or foreign tax. So it is the lower of these two. Done. Now, for example, I am a UK company. I want to expand my operations overseas out of UK. I am a UK company and I want to expand my operations overseas, i.e., I want to expand my operations out of UK. What options do I have to expand my operations? I have two options. One of the option is to create an overseas subsidiary, like to create a separate legal entity. A second way is to create an overseas branch, like which would be part of my entity. What will be the consequences if I establish an overseas subsidiary or if I establish an overseas branch? What will be the tax consequences? Due to overseas subsidiary, number of associates will increase because it is a separate legal entity. If you go with overseas branch, there will be no impact on number of associates. Number of associates would remain the same. The dividend which would be paid by overseas subsidiary, not part of the corporation tax calculation. Losses cannot be transferred between overseas group companies. So the losses, like the capital gains group, the group losses group, the consortium relief, all of these applications are for the UK resident companies, not for the overseas companies. Whereas overseas branch is part of my entity. Hence, any profit or loss would be considered, as in like we have to pay corporation tax on overseas branch profits. We would get relief on overseas branch related losses. Done. Because branch is my part and parcel. It is not a separate entity. Overseas subsidiary has to pay tax in overseas only, as it is a separate legal entity and registered in overseas country. Overseas branch profits are taxed in both UK and overseas because it is operating overseas, part of the UK company. How to have overseas subsidiary? So if you want to start the business via a subsidiary, how can have a subsidiary? You can purchase the share capital of any existing company, one of the way. Second way, you can incorporate an entity and become shareholder. So these are the two ways to operate via a subsidiary. How to have overseas branch? So for example, if I want to have an overseas branch, what I have to do? And if I want to have overseas branch, we can do it by acquiring trade and assets. We can by acquiring trade and assets, or we can do it by creating or establishing a permanent establishment by acquiring the asset any particular. Okay. So in short, concludingly, if I have a branch, I have to pay tax on my branch profits. If branch incurs a loss, I will get the relief on that loss. But in case of subsidiary, it is a separate legal entity. Subsidiary would not have any tax consequences. Election to exempt branch, which is like permanent establishment. So I can make an election to exempt my branch profits. First of all, the election is irrevocable. So once you made the election, you cannot revert it. You cannot change it. Second, election should be made before start of accounting period. So election is not towards the end of accounting period, rather election is towards the start of accounting period. Cherry picking option is not allowed, i.e. if an election is made for a branch, it would be applicable on all of the branches. So no cherry picking option. After the election, no UK tax on profit of branch. No loss would be allowed, means no UK tax implications on branch results. And since under the discussion of we are under the discussion of overseas subsidiaries, groups, kind of a stuff. So let me have a final discussion with respect to this group registration, the last topic, and then we'll proceed towards the question. And before proceeding towards question, I will take your views, your queries as well. This group registration is with respect to VAT. Principally speaking, every separate legal entity has to pay his or her own tax. Principally speaking, every separate legal entity has to pay his or her own tax. However, for VAT purposes, two or more companies, whether group companies uh, plus any individual who is actually owner, can register as a group for VAT purposes if they are under common control, such as parent company and its subsidiary, and each of them is resident in the UK. So resident in UK and control should be common. A VAT group is treated for VAT purpose as if it was a single company registered for VAT on its own. Okay, so all of the group is considered a single entity for VAT purposes. Group VAT registration is made in the name of representative member, and this company is then responsible for completing and submitting a single VAT return and paying VAT on behalf of the group. So on behalf of whole of the group, there would be one company who would be submitting the VAT. However, all the companies in the VAT group remain jointly and severally liable for any VAT liabilities. There are one or two advantages of the group VAT registration, and there are one or two disadvantages of group VAT registration. What are the advantages and or disadvantages? First, the advantage of group VAT registration is that there will be no need to account for VAT on goods and services supplied between group members. Such supplies are simply ignored for VAT purposes. It will also only be necessary to complete VAT return for the whole group. So there should be a savings in administrative cost. From the administrative cost perspective, there would be a savings. But if I think about factually, from the data perspective, from the tax return preparer perspective, there will be more difficulty because he or she needs to consolidate the data of two or more companies. However, the disadvantage is that various limits, such as those for cash and annual accounting scheme, will apply to the VAT group as a whole rather than on individual company basis. This is one of the biggest disadvantage of the VAT group. Now I'm taking a pause like for 2 to 5 minutes, looking towards your questions. So your questions are welcome. So what are questions practiced capital gains and corporation tax? So the questions which are like for capital gains and corporation tax. So before I address this part, so there are some of the questions which are very good for both of these. But before I address this thing, I suggest, like I strongly recommend, rather than going for the cherry picking, go for like try to attend the 100% exam kit, please. That is my first advice, request, whatever you name it. But yes, there are some of the good questions I can share like after the class. No, these are like recently tested. Mm. No, to Fatma Zara, the answer is no. If you are like, do not end up your exam like it will be automatically end up. So there is no negative thing involved in it. There is no negative thing involved. Okay. Uh, let's start. Let's start. Let's start with the uh, ACCA practice platform. I'm going to start a question. Uh, okay. So okay, based on the request of so many of you guys, what I'm going to do right now is let's take a 10 minutes break and we'll start the question after 10 minutes break. I suggest all of you guys to be logged in at your ACCA practice platform so that we can start practicing the questions directly. Okay, so it is like 9:35 by my watch, and let's resume it at 9:45. Then we'll be doing this one question. Okay, so my screen sharing is on pause. Mic would be on mute for like next 10 minutes. Thank you. By the way, this webinar is of 4 days, and Ansar, you can that's a very good question. If you are asking this thing today, how to log in the ACCA practice platform. So I will guide you over that part as well. That is what I can do. Okay, so let's resume it like next 9 minutes. Uh, okay, so let's resume. Let's start with our question. Uh, so any one of you is like, sir, please guide me how to approach over here. Apologies, my set couldn't able to log in. So if you are unable to log in, you can like create an account, or you can like forgot password. You will get the details to log in. Mm, okay, so let's start with this thing. I'm going to ACCA practice, September, December, the most recent exam. I hope you guys would have covered all of these instructions at least once, right? All of these instructions at least once. Kamran, honestly, no. So I don't know which website you are referring. So this is like advanced taxation, CB practice, CB question practice ACCA platform. You log into the practice platform. You will redirect it to a new screen, and over that new screen, you have to like enter your login ID and password. Mhm. So you have to move all of the scroll bars, then it will be moving. Should I start? So this is the question which I'm going to start right now with you guys. Uh, this is the screen, the real examination screen, and I will guide you along with attempting the question how to deal with this screen as well. You should assume that today's date is for September 2021. So today's date is for September 2021 as per as per the assumption. Your manager has received a schedule of information from Hale, the managing director of JEG Limited, a potential client of your firm. This schedule and extracts from an email from your manager detailing the work you are required to do are included in the exhibits. Okay. The following exhibits available on the left hand side of the screen will provide information relevant to the question. Schedule 1 from Hale is dated for September 21. Email extract from your manager is like dated for September 2021. This information should be used to answer the requirements within your chosen response section. Okay, let me read the requirement first, a key requirement. Then we'll look into detail the schedule and the email from manager. Prepare a memorandum requested in the email from your manager. The following marks are available. Okay, so this talks about basically the the professional marks, and I will be guiding you guys via the help of this question how to get those professional marks. Okay, uh, prepare a memorandum becoming tax advisor to JEG Limited group of companies. Fine. So this is ethical kind of issue. Becoming tax advisor. Second, relieving the chargeable gain on the sale of key limited business premises. Fine. Taxation of profits generated overseas. Last part, VAT. Professional marks will be awarded for the approach taken to problem solving, the clarity of explanation, the effectiveness with which the information is communicated, and the overall presentation and style of the memorandum. So it is like, okay, I'm done. Uh, Stewart, honestly, it would be difficult for me at this time because at this point of time, I'm not only solving the question, rather, my main focus would be on explaining as well. But just to guide you guys, look, this overall question is of 35 marks. Out of the 35 marks, the marks which you guys would be attempting solving is like 31. The 4 marks are for the presentation and format. You can say them as like your free of cost type of marks, extra marks kind of thing, free time. So no time allotted for this thing and you'll be getting the marks. So keeping these kind of points in your mind, you can give, for example, 2 to 3, max 5 minutes extra in such situations. Okay, I'm done with reading the requirement. First, let me open up the schedule, which is from Hale. And the second is extract from your line manager. So let me open up the line manager email as well. Okay, extract from the Hale background. On 1st August 19, JAG Limited purchased whole of the ordinary share capital of two companies, K Limited and Liz Limited. On 1st July 2021, JAG Limited purchased the whole of the ordinary share capital of M Limited. Okay, so M Limited is like acquired recently, and K and Liz Limited is like acquired some time ago. Yeah, I will be addressing that part, Ansar. All four companies prepare accounts to 31st March each year and are budgeted to be profitable in the year ending 31st March 2022. Further details of the companies are set out below, followed by a summary of recent significant transactions. Further details of companies are set out below, followed by a summary of recent significant transactions. JAG Limited, UK resident, country of trading activity, UK resident, whether registered for VAT, yes, rate of overseas tax not applicable because the company is UK resident. K Limited, UK resident, yes, country of trading activity, UK, whether registered for VAT, yes, rate of overseas tax not applicable. List company, country of residence, Solana, country of trading activity, Solana, whether registered for VAT, no, rate of overseas tax, yes, unlimited, country of residence, UK, country of trading activity, Quran, okay, whether registered for VAT, no, rate of overseas tax, 13%, JAG Limited purchase of business. On 1st Feb 21, JAG Limited purchased the trade and assets of the business. The only significant asset of the business was its production line, which consists of large three items of fixed machinery. JAG, JAG Limited paid 290,000 for this machinery. K Limited K Limited is experiencing cash flow problems. On 30th June 21, it sold its business premises to an unconnected party for 485,000, resulting in chargeable gain of 247. The building was entirely used in K Limited trade throughout the period it was owned. K Limited now trades from rented premises. On 1st August 21, it used 120,000 of the sale proceeds to purchase 8 delivery vans for use in its trade. Okay. List Company on 1st July 21, List Company purchased a building situated in Silana for 170,000. The building was immediately bought into use in List Company's trade. List Company manufactures industrial components which it supplies to customers in Silana and in other countries. It is intended that JAG Limited will purchase components from List Company and import them for use in its own manufacturing trade. In view of the low rate of business tax in Silana, and considering pricing strategies which would maximize the profits of the group which are taxed there, Unlimited carries on its trade in Puran when its production and distribution facilities. It has not made any capital additions or disposals of significance since 2019. Finally, I am looking into the possibility of any group VAT registration. Now, this is the extract from email from manager. Okay. I expect the JAG Limited Group to be an exciting new client for our firm. Hale has an ambitious plans, and although we advise a number of corporate groups, we have given our first experience of companies operating through permanent establishment situated overseas. One alarm bell which raised in my mind. We would be first time giving advice to the client which is situated or which has a permanent establishment in overseas. Do you guys feel any issue in this thing? Do you guys feel any type of issue in this? Yes, there is a competency, professional competence type of thing, a concern which I can feel. I can confirm there is no tax treaty between the UK and either the country of Solana or the country of neither Solana nor Puran are members of European Union. There are no controlled foreign companies implications for you to consider. Please prepare a memorandum for the client files considering the work consisting of the work set out below. Becoming tax advisor to the JAG Limited group of companies. Set out the information we require and actions we should take before we agree to become tax advisors to the JAG Limited group. Relieving the chargeable gain on the sale of business premises. Explain the matters which should be brought to Hale attention in relation to the availability of rollover relief in respect of the chargeable gain on the sale of K Limited business premises and the way in which relief would operate. Taxation of profits generated overseas. List company. Explain the implications in respect to UK corporation tax payable of list company charging JAG Limited inflated prices for its components in order to maximize the profits of the group which are taxed in Solana. JAG Limited is a small enterprise for the purpose of transfer pricing regime. M Limited. Explain the rate of corporation tax which will be suffered by M Limited in the UK on profits generated by its permanent establishment in the UK. The matters to consider when deciding whether or not to make an election to exempt the profits of the permanent establishment in Puran from UK tax. VAT. I have already established that list company cannot be included in the VAT group registration with JAG Limited. With this in mind, explain Which of the other companies within the group could be included within a group VAT registration? Any potential disadvantage relevant to the JAG Limited group of companies of registering for VAT as a group? The VAT implications for JAG Limited of purchasing components from Liz Limited, a Liz company. One thing which you guys need to assess, do you guys feel majority part of this question as theoretical, or do you guys believe the majority part of this question to be calculative? What do you guys believe? You guys more to be theoretical? I agree. That is more theoretical. Listen to my point and follow this thing principally. If you feel your more working is towards the theoretical side, then your main answer would be on this word with supporting calculations on the spreadsheet. So main answer like driving seat would be the word file, whereas supporting workings, extra workings, rough workings would be done on the spreadsheet. Is this thing clear? Now, I am going to address it. One of the important aspect which I would be covering right now. Sir, how to get the professional marks element? If it is to Ayaz, if it is more of a calculation, like to some extent you require explanation, but it is more calculation driven, then your main answer would be on spreadsheet with reference to the word file. Reference to the word file. But since like this is more theoretical, my main driving seat would be word file, and I would be giving reference to the spreadsheet. Okay, so if I look into this, please prepare a memorandum for the client file. So first of all, I'm supposed to make memorandum. I am going to guide you guys how to grasp the professional marks as well. Okay. First of all, what you are going to prepare, I'm going to prepare a memorandum. Then, for like where I'm going to address this memorandum, please prepare a memorandum for the client file. Very clearly, you are being instructed to prepare the memorandum from the client file. To Etesham, it is highly advisable that first read the requirement, the concluding requirement, then the scenario in a chronology. Then to whom we are going to address this thing? We are going to address this thing to the client file. After this, for uh, who is your client? Who is your client? The client was JAG Limited Group. Then there would be subject, date from, or you can say subject. Is there any one particular issue or theme which we are discussing over here? So I am covering over here to, in place of to, I am like using the word for. I have covered from, subject, date. The matters are same. Yes, you can use that. So that is not like I have used here only one additional thing on top of that, the subject. That's it. Various text matters, company matters. So both of these would work. So there are two good suggestions. One is like various text matters, or okay, unable to locate. So you will get this question in past exam question section. Past exam question section, September December 2021. What should be date? What should be date? The date should be the starting, assuming today's date is 1st September 2021 or 20. I can't recall to be exact. 1st September 2021. And this memorandum is prepared by, this memorandum is prepared by tax senior or tax associate. So logically speaking, this was extract from your manager. So you can be anyone, you can pick any designation below than the manager. So you can be tax senior, you can be tax assistant manager, you can be tax officer, whatever you want to name yourself, you can name over here. Some of the important things. This would be bold, this would be bold always, and that's it. So this was the like if you follow this approach, and after this thing, it does not end up over here. Do take care of this thing. So part A, part A talks about becoming tax advisor. It worked normally. I don't know why it is not working over here. Okay. Part A is becoming tax advisor to the JAG Limited group of companies. Hmm. Okay, now I'm looking. Now this would be again bold. Set out the information we require. I'm dividing the requirement now. Set out. Ansar, I don't know why it was not working. Control C to Control V. Till I recall it used to work, but I don't know whether it was not working this time or some other issue. There is no defined font size. There is no suggested recommended font size, so you can use any. Now, please be with me, picking up an important discussion. Set out the information we require and the actions we should take before we agree to become the tax advisor. So this part A contains two sub requirements. One, information we require, and second, actions we should take. So here I'm not going to write what should be in the heading, but I know within the heading of becoming tax advisor, there should be two headings. One heading should be like it is a subheading, okay? Information we require, and second would be actions we should take. And since I'm like, or if you don't want to italic, make it underline, but use consistently. Use it consistently, whatever you do. Okay, so if you're going to put underline for the subheadings, fine, but follow the underline then. If you are going to make it tilt like italic, make it italic. Is this thing clear? By the way, the part A belongs to the part A belongs to the area which we started earlier today, which was like becoming tax advisor kind of thing. Okay. Uh, Again, am, am I'm not saying that it should be bold or should not be bold. No. My point is, whatever way of headings you are using, use it consistently. That's it. So, and it should be like, uh, it should be a self-explanatory type of thing that you are using it as a subheading. That's it. Any way you would work. Again, am I supposed to like write what should be here? Information we require. And I'm not going to write, rather, we can discuss this thing. What information should we require? We require the proof of incorporation, we require primary business address, we require registered office address of each of the company in the group. The group structure, what is who is parent, who is subsidiary, since when it is parent, kind of thing. Who are the directors? Who are the shareholders of the company? Lastly, uh, the authorized signatories, authorized contact persons for the uh, to the firm from the company, right? Then, action we should take before we agree. Action should we take? First, we should assure ourselves that company is not involved in any form of money laundering. Uh, we should seek confirmation from the company to contact the previous tax advisor, like why the company is going to change its tax advisor, what's the reason behind it, and we will check with the tax advisor, the previous tax advisor, like there is anything which he wants to brought into attention with respect to a company, like is there any pending litigation, any pending tax issue kind of thing, right? uh, we have to ensure that we have enough technical knowledge, we have enough human resource knowledge to able to complete the assignment. Okay, Junaid, it is not about how much we write. It is to be exact. You should be writing to the extent that relevant points would be addressed. Action should be take action should be taken to minimize the threats to the principals. Obviously, Garyal, a good question. So I like to share the question with you guys. So the question is, while addressing such type of questions, should we respond in point form or should we respond in paragraphic form? So answer to this question is it's up to you. You can respond either in paragraphic form or either in bullets form. My dear, what matters is relevant points should be addressed. If you are addressing relevant points, be either in paragraphic form or in bullets form, both would work. These points or there is minimum level to write. So the Moses, I like to the one interesting answer to your question. We have always, like practicing while studying, we always have to raise our bars, because if we keep our bars at low level now at time of practice, why in exam pressure, in exam constraint, in exam stress, bars already gets down to some extent. So if you keep lower bars at lower level already, so I hope you understand. Kamran, like I said, it is not about the number of points. It is like mainly to be exact, relevant points should be addressed. That's it. That's what I'm aware of principally. No, there is no such rule like 1 mark for 1 point. So 1 mark, so it's not about the quantity of lines, it is about the quality of point which you are going to address. Probably the requirement is so generic that 1 point would cover by two relevant points picked from the question, or if you pick up one heavy point, the 1 point would work. So there is no defined rule, please. Well, moving forward to the next point, next part. Relieving the chargeable gain on the sale of business premises. So I try my best to keep my fonts, etc. same. B, B part is relieving the chargeable gain on the sale of K Limited's business premises. Now, if I read this requirement in detail, explain the matters, explain the matters which should be brought into Hale attention in relation to availability of rollover relief in respect of chargeable gain on the sale of K Limited business premises, and the way in which the relief would be operated. Two most important things over here. First, matters which should be brought to Hale attention in relation to availability of rollover relief. So my first subheading would be availability of rollover relief. Now, availability of rollover relief. When the rollover relief will be available? When again, I can address this part completely in general, like I shared you guys with you guys the first reason, the first most common complaint from the examiner. Students do not link the question with the requirement. How to link the availability of rollover relief with the requirement? I would be like, I'm just thinking for rollover relief to be available, qualifying asset, i.e., business asset must be purchased and disposed within a 4-year period, within last 12 months, next 36 months from the disposal date of K Limited business premises. Acha, okay. After that, once you said K Limited business premises, so if I look again, the K Limited business premises was disposed of on 30th June 21. So the reinvestment should take place last 12 months, next 36 months from this date. So this is how you would be referring to this question. Okay. Uh, secondly, uh, I would be discussing the reinvestment concept with respect to capital gains. Like I'm just writing the key bullets which would be addressed over the availability of rollover relief. General conditions, Then after the general conditions, I have to discuss it with interaction of capital gains group companies, with respect to and last discussion of assets acquired by companies. Done. So these are the broad dimensions. Like, I'm not saying these are the 3 points which you should be covering. These are the dimensions over which my discussion would be addressed under this heading. And once this discussion is done, then I would be picking up the second bullet point, and the second bullet point would be towards operation of relief, operation of rollover relief. And that looks more better. Now, then you have to explain how, and again, all of the things are explained. So here, all of the things would be like an explanation. There should be no calculation around this. Like, calculations would be in the statement form, not in the workings or in the spreadsheet form. Okay. So in exams, these keys will not work. Ansar, till I recall, yes, it used to work, but I don't know. Like, I can't comment right now. It is like my current time issue or whatever. Working of shortcut key is secondary first. Well, are we clear with the part B, or do I need to make any discussion with respect to it? In the part, okay, in the part B, operation of relief. What am I supposed to discuss in the operation of relief? So in the operation of relief, I'm supposed to discuss like whether it is a partial reinvestment, complete reinvestment. If complete reinvestment, all of the gains would be rolled over. If partial reinvestment, part of the gains would be rolled over. If reinvestment isn't non-depreciating, crystallization philosophy would be discussed. Reinvestment isn't if reinvestment isn't depreciating asset, then crystallization of deferred gain would be earliest of. These are the lines which would be addressed over here. Okay, so operation of relief, what points to be covered? uh, how to calculate the relief. We have to talk about partial or complete reinvestment, and then I have to talk about crystallization of deferred. I need to discuss the crystallization of deferred gain if rollover, if holdover. Again, I'm just guiding you guys what will be your dimensions to answer. I'm not writing the answer. Interaction of capital gains group, Moses, that is basically, uh, I can recall in this part of the question, there was a group structure as well. And within the group structure, you were buying some, like, this company is disposing of the asset. The K Limited is disposing of the asset, but other companies were purchasing the asset. Other companies purchasing the asset like Jag Limited. I can see Jag Limited purchased a machinery. I can see List company has purchased some assets, building. So whether interaction of capital gains group, the group rollover relief is available, it would be available to Jag Limited, would not be available to List company. Why not available to List company? Because List company is not UK resident. The capital gains group implications is for UK resident company. Hence, the implication is not applicable for the List company. So uh, then you can talk about the K Limited disposed of and purchased the asset. Since K Limited purchased the asset, once it purchased for use in its trade, whether the relief would be available or not. So this kind of discussions. Welcome. Anything further with respect to the part B of the requirement? Okay. Now I'm going to start part C. Professional marks, even it considers, like, for example, if you are writing A, B in small, and if you write C in capital over here, there will be a deduction with respect to professional marks. Okay, so these kind of small things are considered in the professional marks. C, taxation of profits generated overseas. Uh, can the relief be split between two companies? To Collins, the answer is yes. Tell me the key areas. Okay, so let's start this thing. Let's start this discussion. Taxation of profit generated overseas. Okay, list company. Explain the implications in relation to UK corporation tax of list company charging Jag Limited inflated prices for its component in order to maximize the profits for the group which are taxed in Solana. Jag Limited is a small enterprise for the purpose of transfer pricing regime. Fine. So if I look into this taxation of profit generated overseas, It is already subdivided into list company and M company. So C, it is like list company, list company, small enterprise, taxation of profits, pricing inflation, and very categorically refused for the controlled foreign company. Categorically ignored for the controlled foreign company consequences, right? So, list company, list company. Mainly, I would be addressing the transfer pricing legislation, reasons and consequences, both of the things, how it works, what will be the consequences, related kind of things. After this part, the next discussion would be on M Limited. Explain the rate of corporation tax which will be suffered by M Limited in the UK on the profit generated by its permanent establishment in Puran, and the matters to consider when deciding whether or not to make an election to exempt the profits of the permanent establishment in Puran from UK tax. So my second heading would be over here. My second heading would be over here. It's like Mott Limited. After Mott Limited, 2 points to be asked. Now, I need to create a subheading, a thing which will guide me that it is a subheading. Okay. Uh, Probably for subheading, it is totally independent thing. Rate of corporation tax, I need to discuss the rate of corporation tax in the UK on profits generated by permanent establishment in Puran. So one, this would be subheading kind of thing. And second talks about matters to consider when deciding whether or not to make an election to exempt the profits of permanent establishment. Election to exempt the profits of the permanent establishment I've like shared the headings kind of thing. Uh, I have shared with you the headings kind of thing. How, like, what the data that should be inputted in it, that is the second discussion. Now, a rate of corporation tax on profits generated by permanent establishment. Remember, if it is a branch, branch would be taxed Branch would be taxed uh, in once in the local country in which the branch is physically located, and once in the UK as well, because it is controlled from the UK. So there will be a double tax treaty kind of thing. The branch profits will be taxed twice, once in the country of Puran and once in the country of uh, UK. If I read the requirement, rate of corporation tax in the UK on profits generated by permanent establishment. Okay, so since it's a UK resident company, it's part of the UK resident company. So since country of residence of Mott Limited is UK, it is part of a UK resident company. Hence, it would be subject to UK corporation tax on its worldwide income. It has a permanent establishment in overseas, so it has to pay. Quran has to, sorry, Mott Limited has to pay the tax on the profits which it earned in the country of Quran at the rate 13%. However, the profits will be taxed again in the UK at 19%. However, DTR would be available, which would be at the rate lower of UK tax or foreign tax. UK tax 19, foreign tax 13%. So the DTR would be the Puran country tax would be DTR, which would result in like effectively you have to pay the tax in UK only. Election to exempt the profits of permanent establishment. So what will be the advantage? What will be the things to consider? First of all, it's an irrevocable election, must be made before start of chargeable accounting period. Uh, Cherry picking not allowed. If you go for the election, all if the election would be for all of the subsidiaries, all of the branches owned by Mott Limited. Uh, if election is made, then there will be no UK tax, then there will be no UK tax on overseas branch profit, but there will be no loss relief then as well. Accordingly, that would the branch profits or losses will be completely ignored for the UK corporation tax purposes. The consequences. Anything to ask from this? Anything to discuss from this? Please do let me know. Otherwise, I will be heading towards the last part of this question, that is about the VAT. Anything any one of you want to ask from this whole discussion? I am happy to take it as a question. I don't know, like whether you guys are tired kind of thing. Okay, no question. Fine. Last discussion. So let's start the last discussion. The last discussion belongs to VAT. Uh, Ansar, seriously, let's pick up this part of your question after this part D. So I am expecting like I would be left over with 5-10 minutes, or we can overrun it. That's not an issue. So let's discuss the thing. So the last part is about VAT. In the VAT, the main discussion, I have already established that list company cannot be included in a VAT group registration. With this in mind, explain which of other companies within the group could be included in a VAT group registration. My first subheading would be VAT group registration. A potential disadvantage, a potential disadvantage, any potential disadvantage relevant to the JAG Limited of registering for a VAT as a group. Potential disadvantage from group VAT registration. The VAT implications for JAG Limited of purchasing the components from Liz Limited. Purchase of components from Liz company. These are the three broad dimensions of this party. Group registration. First of all, a group registration can be formed where a parent, like, controlled, one company is controlled by another company, or two or more companies are under common control of a single entity. So here, if I look, two or more companies are under common control of another entity. Hence, the group VAT registration can be done. But importantly, it is between UK companies only, which has either incorporated in UK or which has a permanent establishment in UK, like genuine trading presence in the UK. Done. Then, if we go for the group registration, then what will be the potential disadvantages? Fine, I noted your point, Namanya. Like, yes, there may be administrative issues. I agree, possible disadvantage. And any further possible disadvantage? One major disadvantage. If there is any error in the VAT return in front of HMRC, whole of the group would be equally responsible for that error. So if there is any error, the whole of the group would be equally responsible. Second, administrative difficulty. Okay, one important and one point is like scenario specific thing. K Limited was in cash difficulty. Remember, K Limited was in cash difficulty. I hope you guys remember this thing, right? If we include K Limited in our group VAT registration, would it be good or would it be bad? Remember, K Limited was in financial difficulty. K Limited even disposed of its premises as well, right? And moved to a rented premises. So if I think with respect to K Limited, would it be good for K Limited? So yes, it would be good for K Limited because he would be aware that probably some other company would pay VAT on his behalf. But from a pair company perspective, that would not be good because other companies would effectively be bearing the burden of the VAT stuff of the VAT stuff of M company, right? K company. Sorry, I forgot it. So yes, done. Last, purchasing the components from list company. So it was mentioned in the question that list company is not located in the UK. List company is located overseas, right? List company is located overseas. Oh, and within the overseas, it was outside European Union. So if you purchase the goods from outside European Union, then for example, JAG Limited, since here JAG Limited was purchasing, then JAG Limited would be required to pay VAT at a standard rate on the importation of components when it arrives in the country. Once you process, okay, the VAT which you have paid on a time of importation of the goods from list limited, you can recover that VAT as your input VAT as well. Uh, the only limitation is in case JAG Limited is making exempt supplies, then there would be a VAT cost. Otherwise, effectively, there will be no VAT cost to the JAG Limited. Only the cash flow impact would be there. No effective cost or expense involved with the JAG Limited. I ask that transfer pricing legislation is not for the VAT, it is for the corporation tax perspective. Okay, so I'm done with the question by the way. But before I close out the question, I'm taking your view. We were writing the memorandum, right? In the memorandum, do we have to give the recommendation or conclusion type thing? And do we have to put regards kind of stuff? Yes or no? Do we have to put the regards kind of stuff? The answer is no. So there is no need of recommendation. There is no such need. Otherwise, there would be a last paragraph, last heading as well. By the way, if you guys follow this approach, which I have used over here, I can for sure say you will get 4 marks. You will get 4 marks. You will get 4 marks for this thing. Okay. Uh, Now, there was one question, how to manage the time. I'm very stressed. Uh, how to manage the time? That is one of the key important question with respect to this thing in the TX ATX kind of thing. uh, which screen you are asking to zoom out? Are you asking to zoom out this one? Okay. So since I'm discussing right now, so I'm fine. The discussion was how to manage the time. It is not for any one person. The most of the students, even probably if I'm not wrong, make it like 95, 90% plus people in the professional stream would suffer from this thing, time management. Two, three things, most importantly, which you guys do not perform, due to which you lack in the paper for this time management thing. First of all, just before 1-2 days from the exam, try to solve the paper, 2 to 3 papers at least in the fair exam scenario. Exam scenario as in like, do solve the questions properly, for example, via this practice platform, so that you guys would be able to familiarize with this practice platform. One of the biggest problem with we as a student is we normally practice either on pen pencil, for example, in a hard form paper, or even if we practice, we use the Microsoft spreadsheet, where uh, one of the key thing to learn from this question is how I am managing 4 screens together, because one data was available, one data was available in one screen, second data available on second screen, third date like third. I'm writing on Word. Luckily, there was nothing to write on the spreadsheet. Otherwise, I need to manage the fourth spreadsheet screen as well. You will learn this screen management as well, which is very important. So only way, I'm not saying via this thing you will complete your paper, but the leftover will be minimized. This is for sure. At least attempt 2 to 3 complete papers in 3 hours 15-minute session on ACCA platform. Second, very important advice to all of you. Completing the paper should not be for the sake of completing the paper. Completing the paper should not be on the cost of uh, compromising the quality. If you are compromising the quality just for the sake of completing the paper, you are gone, because then uh, quality should not be compromised. That is the second most important message from my side. Anything further you guys want to ask, please do let me know. Else, we will meet tomorrow, inshallah. Can you please show main examiner articles which we should read? So Ayaz, like I said, there are 2 questions which will be part of agenda for tomorrow. We will be covering that questions specific. Uh, how examiner articles we should read. So to Sajdev, examiner articles should be read properly, religiously, so that you guys would be crystal clear with each and every point of the article. Otherwise, take the help, take the support. You can take my support as well, but it should be done very religiously, because these are the emerging themes which is basically exist currently in the examiner mind. Baba, yes, technical articles, most important technical articles and examiner comments. Both things are very important. uh, okay, considering no other thing from my side, no probably questions from your side, how do we incorporate a requirement that needs computation? To Namanya, probably, I don't know, luckily and luckily that was not part of this question, but for sure that would be part of tomorrow's question. So let's keep this part for tomorrow so that I would be in a position to guide you guys how to merge the computation and the word component, right? Okay, so once again, will you show how to format the answer? So to Bhavna, like this is to be, I have not put the materials in it. So these, I have specified the dimensions which should be covered in this answer. Uh, this is the perfect format of the answer, especially for the part A, where there is professional marks. If you address this part properly, all other parts are fine. This is the most important thing. This is the most important and the most technical area with respect to the paper answer formatting. Okay. So thank you very much, dear students. I hope to see you guys tomorrow, inshallah. Take care. Good night. Thank you once again.